All right. Hello, welcome. This is the Feature Flag Office Hours meeting for September 24th. Arit is out on PTO, and so I'm going to try and help cover this and move the conversation forward as necessary. Um, so yeah, I did not prepare anything for this, so the agenda is empty. Happy to see where this goes. I know we have Camille has joined, and I know you've written a interesting architectural blueprint for the internal usage of feature flags, and you've done some. You continue to have announcements about how to what the process is going through to improve the new YAML way of organizing feature flags and things. So that could be a topic for conversation here for the group. I think one thing that is on my mind is sort of how do we take, there was another large conversation that was sparked by Ken Johnson about the sort of dog fooding efforts, and marrying the two things. I think could be a where do we take the internal usage of feature flags, and how do we move forward in making the the usage for feature flags from teams like Growth or someone else who is trying to dog food these efforts. That could be an interesting thing to talk about too. So, Camille, do you want to take it away? With the things you've added there about that stuff I just rambled on about?
Yeah, so I created this blueprint to describe the reasons why this improvement, why I'm doing these improvements, to kind of document exactly the goals that I want to achieve. And they are not exactly the same goals that you have with the dog fooding,
Right.
because they are more oriented around, let's say, treating feature flags as a technical debt. I mean,
Okay.
This is my perception. Introduction of the feature flag is an additional toil that we put on every one of us using them. And it's related to developer adding, they have to cover that with the tests, engineering manager to understand how many feature flags we have, then developer having to roll out that and remove that, product manager understanding what feature flags are configured and where and on what environments, SRE and support team understanding how these feature flags play with the rest of the features, product manager understanding if feature that they are about to announce it's enabled or it's not, and my the whole internal usage and improvement process is around trying to help these people better understand how to deal with the feature flags and who owns them, how they are configured, and who to reach if it's needed. So I kind of consider this like the prequel, because today our feature flags usage is very undefined on so many layers. I hope that with my work we make this defined and explicit, and we kind of use that known behaviors, and then once we start dog fooding, it's much easier for us to check exactly what behaviors we use, because there is only a few of them. It's much easier for us to understand what feature flags and what requirements are there, because they are explicitly defined. And the third item, once other people around GitLab start using this, let's say, descriptive way of managing feature flags, it's gonna also be part of the dog fooding, how we can answer all of these questions really, because I mean, like, the coding is not about like changing engine, saying from now on we use Unleash. It's about the whole process, how we use the feature flags.
Mm-hmm.
It's about like making this visible and understood to anyone outside engineers writing a few lines of the code, which from like the random conversations that I saw, like was pretty like confusing, because I even myself, like I look at the list of the people that I should reach to update the details about the feature flags, and there is at least maybe 10 mentions of the feature flags that are owned by me that I actually forgot to even remove, because uh, I did them. They got deployed, they work fine, but like there was no one around to ping me, or like to know even that there are these feature flags, to
Mm-hmm.
kind of raise the awareness that maybe this is the right time to remove them.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea behind that is like making this mm, easy to track and
Mm-hmm.
treat that as a technical debt, make it more aggressive, like to remove when it's not needed. And like I think like if you look at my blueprint, the dogfooding effort, I think it should answer these goals. How we make
Mm-hmm.
this like easy for other people to track and like to answer these questions. So this is my whole perception about this internal process. But the other perception is like uh, it's like we have so many feature flags, we have so many developers adding them basically daily. There is so
Mm-hmm.
big variation that the tuning needs to kind of be easy to use and fast to iterate as well. So um, kind of like the tooling, I mean, like the tooling should encourage usage of the feature flags.
Mm-hmm.
The process should not discourage usage of the feature flags, because you have so much process around the usage of the feature flags that like you're rather not gonna add the feature flag because of that. It's so much toil. I think the whole idea is like to cut the toil but make it like visible in slightly different way. So kind of like mm, the feature flag being not owned by the individual, but rather like the group, and the group understanding what feature flags they have, when they should be removing these feature flags, and knowing what is the correlation between the feature flag and the feature. And like it could be also related to like simple example, like we deploy gitlab.com kind of daily or every second day. We kind of create the Q&A issue to ask developers to click if they validated that their feature works on the staging. And like with my changes, we can actually extend that information with the indication what feature flags got added, removed, and changed, because it's much easier to get this data. So now, like the developer, the delivery engineer, or SRE associated with that group can go into this Q&A issue and see like what new feature flags got introduced if they see, for example, some let's say downgrade on the performance. So since they better know what changed, they can much more targetedly look for the reasons why it did happen. So there's a lot of random reasons. I guess like the main goals are as described, like make it visible, treat that as a technical debt, but make it easy like to contribute, but kind of move away from the developers the need to irradiate the knowledge about these feature flags. I think that there is a lot of automation that can be done around giving like you that knowledge, what is where and how it's configured.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Thank you for.
even like it's kind of a lot of random thoughts.
No, it's fine. But I think like the central themes here are like it's like an efficiency thing. It's a it's a code quality problem, and it's like a communication problem. So like yeah, this is super interesting. So like you also have like there's an associated epic in here about like sort of a breakdown of tasks or whatever, right? Um, so one of the questions I had from like another conversation was like, since progressive delivery is like, owns the feature flags service for customers, and like what like the architectural blueprint and the breakdown of tasks and issues for that blueprint. Wondering about like the um, sort of like where the two groups will like your efforts in here, and if this is going to be on the memory team or some other internal team, or if there's going to be like where the boundaries are between like what progressive delivery does to support the internal usage of feature flags versus how we support the feature flags service for customers. Do you have any thoughts or suggestions there?
Yes, I think like probably one of the splits that you could think of is like feature flags as internal thing, maybe part of being of the delivery, and like feature flags as a product, part of the progressive delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get it,
Mm-hmm.
like the difference between these two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Delivery is like around like deploying GitLab, and
Mm-hmm.
progressive delivery is about the building product.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of thinking that it's maybe not the most efficient. Like um, I'm kind of thinking that like for the dogfooding aspect, how to approach, you need to fully understand our usage and like the scale of our usage and the
Mm-hmm.
problems associated with that. So I think that maybe kind of deviating the focus of the progressive delivery, but likely in the initial phase of the dogfooding, this whole internal usage plus dogfooding, I'm kind of thinking it should be progressive delivery because then you are much closer to the actual problems associated with that and how to make our product better to
Mm-hmm.
actually work. Because like one of the challenges that I see today, like we cannot dog food the existing product feature flags because it kind of like it's limiting on so many fashions in how we want to use that internally. Now the question is like how you get this information quickly and like how you know exactly what changes you have to make this transition seamless
Mm-hmm.
to something that is using Flipper to something that is using GitLab feature flags. And I think that this is the challenge. Uh, like maybe progressively were working on the improving internal usage. Maybe like after me
Mm-hmm.
would be the right place because you would be very close to the problems that this solves, and then you could that it could affect the outcome of the product part that actually can handle our usage, which is big actually. Like
Mm-hmm.
amount of the changes that we make, how we deploy application, it's completely different to in the scale compared to like to what GitLab product feature flags currently offers. I'm kind of thinking that if we would change today to use GitLab product feature flags, we would kind of fail miserably because of like this being limiting in the terms of the workflows that you support, auditing, who can change the feature flags and how you can change that. I think each of these aspects, like you need to fully understand how we do it internally in order to update our internal tooling in the iterative way to start using GitLab product feature flags. But on the other hand, like there is still, I believe, like the product work on the GitLab product feature flags in order to be able to use that to the scale of our usage. Like in the previous pure call, I mentioned some performance concerns, but also now, since we moved to the YAML definition, um, how we gonna manage through UI 500 feature flags? how we gonna like keep the track of what got changed by who? How we gonna manage these different states? I mean, 500 is pretty big number to
Sure.
like to manage for UI. So I mean, this is the problems like that there needs to be addressed. But for order for you to address these problems, I think need to be close to our internal usage plus this product part, understanding the product part, and maybe once it's done, then like there is kind of maintenance aspect of the internal usage that some other thing does.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this would be probably my perspective, like making single team closer to the internal usage, the team that is doing the product part of the feature flags,
Mm-hmm.
would likely be more efficient and kind of like have the exit plan that this is how much time is spent on this dog fooding, and this is the maintenance part that is being done by the other group. But for time being, it's we need to be familiar with all these problems and how we approach them. Um, so
Yeah.
my,
No. Yeah.
my concept around that behind that.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I just as you're describing the problem there, I'm thinking of, you know, just like from product designer perspective of like, how would Dimitri solve the problem? What would we do? And how does that define? How would that like, what would we do differently if knowing that's the, knowing that we would have to support a very large number like of feature flags. It probably changes our approach and what designs would come through there. So even from like that, like one small slice of the problem, yeah, it's pretty
Yes,
interesting. Yeah.
it's also interesting because like you have to manage these feature flags across different environments, having different configurations.
Mm.
So like how it's being also approached, and like there is another problem: how you manage feature flags for our on-premise customers. They still
Mm-hmm.
also use this feature. The support team uses these feature flags toggles like to solving some intermediate problems with the customers as well. So um, I think it's like multi-contextual problem to solve, that it's not really about switching the library, but rather about like the whole process and the tooling around how we approach that in different like workflows really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that is like a I'm sorry, I left my train of thought there, but like, yeah, I can, I'm following with you. I think I understand, and I can see like um, I think I can better see. I don't know that I can see a technical path through yet, but I can definitely have a better understanding and can see sort of the conceptual vision and sort of like the, uh, sort of the justifications and reasoning behind, why to go that direction. So, um, so that's something, at least for me. I think I've struggled a little bit to like figure out how we're going to do this, but I think I'm approaching it from the wrong perspective. So, yeah.
So I think the whole intent of my work is like make it better and more explicit. So
Mm-hmm.
like fooding effort would be easier in a terms that like you would know what is there, how it's being used, how different parties use these
Mm-hmm.
feature flags, and then like you could then figure out exactly how this fits into the product part and how product has to be improved,
Mm-hmm.
and like how you can switch these internal things to use the product part. Because right now, like even like changing library, it's like very challenging to do because we sidestep Flipper even like on different occasions. So like
Mm-hmm.
usage is like completely freestyle, to be fair.
Oh.
And like and like my work is really like to make it more explicit about
Mm-hmm.
the usage and context in which you use, how you configure that, who owns that. So you kind of have much better understanding who, what, how, when, and things like that. And this should give you like some perspective how to approach this dog fooding, because you have slightly different and more focused process that involves not only developers, but kind of like a group of different people that consumes this information in a different way from different perspectives. They care about the different detail, really.
Yep, that's true. From your perspective, like the usage of the feature flags, is there like thinking about those different personas, right? Is it mostly developers and maybe SREs if they're trying to try to mitigate a problem, or are there what's it called, like product managers, or you know, some other kind of like somebody say like on Jerome's team, like saying growth or something, that are like adjusting feature flags separately through chat ops or through some other mechanism that we're not like fully considering. Yeah, I think there's like a stable of people that we need to like understand for sure. You have a second bullet point here, and we've only got a few minutes left. The reach GitLabs to update ownership of feature flags isn't it as a like a large like looks like a checklist of people. Anything we need to you would like to share about this document or this issue?
It's pretty well documented.
Okay.
I'm like, we have a lot of feature flags, and it's gonna make it easier if we clearly define who is owner of these feature flags.
Okay.
This is like semi-automated way to find the right people to pick. These people have to like to manually update it. You ask about like different consumers of the feature flags. I'm kind of thinking that right now developers is a central piece, central ingredient like to consume feature flags, where I'm kind of thinking that it doesn't have to be. Developers could focus on something more interesting than like managing the, let's say, life cycle of the feature flag, or like understanding and like exploring these details. I'm kind of even thinking like about the case like you have product manager that needs to validate if the feature works properly. Why we need to ask developer to toggle that? Can just product manager like go to some page or maybe to some chat ops command, say, I'm gonna enable that on my project because all the details are known, and like it can validate that on his own or her own. Another case, like product manager prepares a release post. Usually, like a product manager needs to ask engineer and needs to find the right engineer that introduce the feature flag to ensure that it's enabled by default. Why we cannot like kind of expose this information in like in the easy form? Can like product manager see? So this release post is behind this gated feature flag. I'm just gonna go to our docs GitLab page to check if it's enabled by on or not. If it's not enabled, I'm gonna go into rollout issue and I'm gonna find all the details. So I'm kind of like, the idea behind that is not making developer to be a central contention point. It's rather making developer to, let's say, own introduction and the rollout, maybe with SRE, but kind of making this information accessible to others, which is can be product manager, it can be you as an engineering manager to understand how many feature flags your team owns.
Right.
And if it poses the problem, or maybe we should, if you maybe you're gonna notice that some of these feature flags, they are for 6 months already. It's pretty long to have, right?
Right.
But there is another aspect, like if we have problem understanding if features are configured and how, what our customers can say. really about
Mm-hmm.
like on-premise installation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of thinking that they kind of then scrape documentations, maybe even code base to finding some random names, and they kind of care maybe with them. So it's another venue, like feature flag is kind of an inevitable toggle that we may have to use to safely roll out. But in some cases, like we get some features behind the feature flags to allow to disable them for the performance reasons. And customers could as well find this information in some way or some another and change their GitLab configuration that is running locally.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's just, I got my head spinning in terms of thinking through some of the stuff. It's super interesting. Andrew, do you have anything? You've been a silent observer this whole time. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about or have questions about any of this, or?
Not at the moment. I do kind of agree that I feel like we need to shake out how we want to use feature flags before we can really start looking at the gaps in our own product. I know there are many out there, and there's like, but as long as the target is moving, it's impossible to hit it, right? Or at least extremely difficult. Especially as we iterate on our process faster than we iterate on our product. But no, nothing super exciting or interesting on my end.
No, I think that's a good point, though. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, we have like 60 seconds left. I don't have anything else. Camille, thank you for joining and sharing the stuff with us, and I'll be sure to put the recording into the channel and into the document for others who are not here to review later. And yeah, I look forward to like continued discussions on the architecture and sort of that, like how we make that handoff to increasing like progressive deliveries, ownership or like participation in the internal feature flags process, so we can make the product better. So, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
You'll have a good day.
If you need any further information, like always feel free to reach me.
Okay.
I like to give more details about my plans.
Sure. I have a feeling that will happen. Yes. Thanks, Camille. Take care.